When I was about 18, I wanted to be a teacher, and when I was at primary school, we had a Māori teacher, Toby Rikihana, and he used to, it was like back in the early 70s or mid 70s, and we all had Te Reo Māori classes like every single day, and they were it was my favourite subject, and he was my favourite teacher. Like, he would be to this day probably my favourite teacher. But then when I was 10, we moved, in the school we moved to, they had no deal, and then, you know, moved around a bit again, came down to the Wairarapa, went to Kuranui, and I remember my interview, and my granddad was sitting next to me, and he really wanted me to do tech drawing, because he was like, you know, did drafting and stuff like that, and I really wanted to do Te Reo Māori, because they had Te Reo Māori at Kuranui, and I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, oh, so I did tech drawing, because I didn't want to, you know. Like when George May started at Kohanga, and then Hohepa, I got the, what was they, Te Reo Māori, Let's Learn Te Reo Māori, I think the PM Ryan books out of the library, and I worked through those like methodically. I'd come home from work and I'd work through those, and then we had the situational phrases that Hone Huri Hanganui gave us, so, you know, they were in whare. I'd just hang out at Kohanga when I finished work, and everything that I learned I used till it became second nature. And it was really just to be able to support the kid, or like my tamariki, so that it wasn't, you know, reo's not just something you learn at kohanga or at kura and then there's nothing at home. I just felt like them being Māori was important for them to know their language, but to support them, I needed to know, like it was a momo wā for me, them going to kohanga and kura, and there was no tautoko for the reo in the home. Yeah, just always have loved the language. Won't say the singing because I've got one horrendously flat note. And everyone's like, don't you sing. Nanny Ange, actually, when I was at Kohanga, Nanny Ange, I was doing my whakapakari, and one of the assessments was a waiata, and Nanny Ange was one of the assessors, and she sat behind her paper, and her paper went like this, because she was shaking so hard with laughter. And when I finished, she was like, oh, kari, he kawa rawa tō reo waiata. Nā ka mutu tō kauhau ki te taumata, kia kaua koe e waiata waiho mā te whānau. Like this whole kaupapa has, there's definitely been like some super challenging times, and especially like probably being Pākehā in this all, but it's always been about the kaupapa and the kids. They're my babies, but it's not just about them being my babies, it's about like all of our kids being our babies. And I mean, like, I've worked in the kaupapa for 25 years. We've been in the kaupapa for 26, because Hopper's like 26, so started when I was hapu with him. But it just, I don't know, there's just something special about working in this environment and with the people that are in our community. And I mean, like, some of our whānau, you know, like the matiaha whānau, like, so Nene Ma's always like, you know, learned so much of my reo from her. So now I always just think I can give back her reo, or, you know, share it, not give back because it wasn't mine, but it's that being able to share with her mokopuna, or her great mokopuna and stuff like that. So like one of the things that I'll do every week, I have morning tea, so we have a lucky draw, and there's 5 kids, and I draw out the names of 5 tamariki, and those 5 will come and we have morning tea. But while we have morning tea, we talk about, you know, how te paenga, te kura, he hanga ngoi koretanga, nā ka taia te panoni i tētahi o ngā āhuatanga, he aha i rā āhuatanga, ki te hia koe te kiti i te aha. So, you know, all of those things, and, you know, koina ko ngā papa tākoro, ngā hua, o ā rātou kōrero. I think, you know, this is their place, and if we don't listen to them and they don't feel heard, then how do they know that they can trust us and that they're valued? So everything that they share is try and make it happen. They want a ngahiri. So like, you know, we put in a tono tū matariki tū rākau, so it's part of MPI, and we got 300 rākau, so those were the rākau we planted at Matariki. But those rākau, on the application was that these rākau are, you know, he mea whakamaumahara i a tātou, koe i a kai mātua, you know, those ones like Pirihira, like Mike, all those ones that were instrumental in having our kura established and fighting for the reo in our community, all our kuia that were in kohanga reo, because without their initial struggle, we wouldn't even be here. So they did that, but in the same way that they fed the reo to our to those that have kind of come before us and to people like me, we can now like feed these trees and keep these trees alive, which is in recognition of their journey and their hard work. You know, it's that kind of like that whole, you know, the prophecy of Paura po Tangaroa, that the mati, ka mati atu te reo ka hoki mai me ngā tamariki. So, you know, that's part of that journey, was that whawhai that our kuia kaumātua had to establish kohanga reo and then kura in our area. And then, there's part of that continuing journey. You know, ideally, you'd want the tamariki to be organising their whole day. You know, they'd just come in, this will be just a check-in place, they'll be out and about working in the community, all sorts of, you know, our kura will be out in our community as well as our community in our kura. But I mean, they'll bowl in here and they're like, oh, whapap, me hui tātou. And I'm like, well, he hui ki tāku. And they're like, well, kei whia tō tangata. Because the tangata will be out in the, you know, I have someone waiting for a hui and I'm just tidying, but they'll bowl in. We need a hui right now. But that's cool. It is. Like, I love that our kids feel comfortable enough to just bowl in the door and say, right, we need a hui because we want this, this and this. That's really special. And that'll be like right across the kura. I had one last year bowled in and he wanted a pō kani. And I said, well, we need to organise it. He goes, no, we can have it tonight. I can just go home and tell my mum and we can tell our friends and we can have it tonight. I'm like, no. So he came and we did a poster and then put the poster out and then we had a pō kani. The destiny of their education and their future pathways in their hands, so that they can be, you know, successful, whatever that looks like. Because, you know, not everybody's successful in an academic way. Some people are successful in other ways. So whether they're going to be artists or, you know, tāmoko or do whakairo, or they're going to be environmentalists and things like that. It's finding that passion for each of our tamariki and grounding that into our Māori, so that then they come out knowing who and where who they are, where they've come from and where they're going. Where else do we grow our next lot of rangatira but here, you know, this is their place, so it's about them.